As Danilov was bidding goodbye to someone he believed to be a friend in a park on August 30th, 1986, the KGB detained him, ending his 5-year tour as U.S. News and World Report's Moscow bureau chief. After being charged with spying, Danilov was sent to Lefortovo jail in Moscow, which is also where Gershkovich is being detained. Danilov recently wrote in the Wall Street Journal that the Kremlin employs this type of prison to house prisoners when Moscow wanted to make an example of them. After discussions between Soviet Foreign Minister Eduard Shevardnadze and U.S. Secretary of State George Shultz, Danilov was freed. The Soviet physicist who was captured acquiring confidential U.S. intelligence in the New York subway was substituted for the reporter and 2 human rights activists. Danilov, who is currently 88 years old and resides in Boston, Massachusetts, stated that although he has been thinking about Gershkovich ever since the reporter was arrested, the memories of that period have begun to dim. He claimed that some of it was really distressing. Danilov claimed that when he first learned about Gershkovich's detention, he thought, "This stinks. It's never a pleasant experience to be detained by Russian authorities after being arrested," he continued. However, Danilov stated that when you are dealing with your jailers, you discover that they also are human beings, provided you know Russian, as both he and Gershkovich do. Danilov stated that Gershkovich's physical safety is his top worry. "How are you being treated?" would be my first question if I were speaking with him right now. "Are you receiving humane treatment?" Danilov said. "Or are you being disparaged in some way by those who are detaining you?" A signal of intimidation. There are other connections between Danilov and Gershkovich as well. Gershkovich is the American son of Jewish immigrants from the Soviet Union, whereas Danilov is the American grandson of a Russian commander who escaped during the Russian Revolution. Danilov stated in the Wall Street Journal, "The purpose of arresting a journalist who speaks Russian and has family ties to the country is to send an intimidating signal to others." According to Julia Davis, the founder of Russian Media Monitor, a website that monitors Russian state TV, Gershkovich's arrest was probably meant to scare away any foreign journalists who were still employed within Russia. "We regret to inform you of Bobby Gill's passing," the note states. On October 17, 2024, Bobby lost his fight against stage 4 brain cancer. He was known to many as this tough racer. However, this man's heart was the largest. It was never easy to get along with him. He didn't love you, though, if he wasn't punishing you. Bobby, you deserve our love and respect. Rest in peace. We will announce arrangements once they have been made. Gill's most well-known accomplishment was winning the USAR Hooters Pro Cup Series 4 times, in 1999, 2000, 2001, and 2007. He had the most victories in the history of the series with 46. In addition, Gill won 10 races in the NASCAR All-Pro Series from 1991 to 1994 and 8 in the All-Pro Super Series from 1987 to 1990. He won the 1994 All-American 400 at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, the 1993 and 1997 World Crown 300 at what was then Peach State Speedway, later Gresham Motorsports Park, and the 1993 and 1997 Snowball Derby at Five Flags Speedway. In the winning lane, Sauter declared, "This one's for Bobby. I just didn't get going on the last restart back in November at the 2023 Billy Bigley Memorial, and Bobby was my crew chief here. We kind of gave that one away, in my opinion. I'm pumped. Given how long Richie Waters worked with Bobby, I hope he's proud. Getting this victory for him is just very special." Gill's other achievements include 2 NASCAR All-American Challenge Series victories in 1989 and 1990, an ASA Acdelco Challenge Series triumph at the Minnesota State Fair Speedway in 1995, South Alabama Speedway's 1989 Rattler, and New Smyrna Speedway's 3 straight Florida Governors Cups from 1990 to 1992. Mitzi Gaynor, who starred in popular variety shows in the 1970s and big-screen musicals like South Pacific and Less Girls in the 1950s, passed away on Thursday. She was 93. Variety received confirmation from Gaynor's management team, Renee Reyes and Shane Rosamonda, that she passed away naturally. She delighted audiences on stage, in movies, and on television for 8 decades. She genuinely relished every second of her career and the immense honor of performing. On Gaynor's X account, Reyes and Rosamonda posted a statement. Away from the stage, she was a lively and remarkable woman, a kind and devoted friend, and a kind, gracious, hilarious, and all-around wonderful human being. In the 1958 big-screen version of the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, South Pacific, Gaynor played Navy nurse Nellie Forbush with John Kerr as Lieutenant Cable and Rossano Brazzi as French planter Emile de Becquet. Though many of the other cast members did not, Gaynor sang for herself. In her role as Nellie, she sang the well-known song, "I'm Gonna Wash That Man Right Out of My Hair," which became a lifelong association with her. She co-starred in the George Cukor-directed musical, Less Girls, with Gene Kelly and Kay Kendall a year prior. Chicago is where Francesca Marlene Dezani von Gerber was born. Her father played the violin and cello, while her mother danced. In order for her to continue studying dance with the same teacher who had moved, the family first moved to Detroit and then, when she was 11, to Los Angeles. In 1942, she joined the Los Angeles Civic Light Opera's Corps de Ballet. Gaynor's career can be cleanly split into two main parts: the 1950s, when she starred in several film musicals, the most well-known of which were South Pacific and Less Girls, and a later era during which her brassy effervescence and inexhaustible stamina as a leggy dancer outfitted in Bob Mackie splendor found their ultimate outlet in a groundbreaking series of television specials broadcast from 1967 to 1978, according to the New York Times. According to the Times, Gaynor was never a vocal powerhouse, but her singing had enough energy and individuality to carry off a dazzling production piece. Gaynor, who was gorgeous and blonde, had a certain knowing naughtiness mixed with innocence when she was younger. In the 1950 film, My Blue Heaven, which starred Betty Grable and Dan Daly, Gaynor made her movie debut. She landed her first leading part in the musical Golden Girl the following year, where she portrayed Lotta Crabtree, a real-life entertainer from the Civil War. Along with Marilyn Monroe and Zsa Zsa Gabor, she was a member of the ensemble cast of 1952's We're Not Married. That same year, she performed in the musical Bloodhounds of Broadway, which was based on writings by Damon Runyon and took place among 1920s criminals. Gaynor had appearances in the musicals Anything Goes, 1956, with Bing Crosby and O'Connor, and There's No Business Like Show Business, 1954, with Ethel Merman, Donald O'Connor, and Marilyn Monroe. Following his second electoral run, he was elected to Minnesota's 6th Congressional District in 1974, marking the beginning of his career. After serving 3 terms, he declined to seek for re-election in 1980, the year that many Democrats supported Senator Ted Kennedy rather than President Jimmy Carter's re-election campaign, according to the Associated Press. In 2012, he made a comeback to politics by defeating Representative Chip Cravick in the race for the 8th Congressional District. Then, in 2016, Nolan defeated Republican opponent Stuart Mills in what at the time was the most costly congressional contest in the country, spending over $17 million in a district with over 650,000 voters. In 2018, he declared his retirement and said he will not run for re-election in the 8th Congressional District of the state. Not long after declaring his resignation from Congress, Nolan became the running mate of former Minnesota Attorney General Lori Swanson in her bid for governor. "I am going to make one vow," Nolan declared during the governor's race. "I promise the people of Minnesota that I will prioritize their needs and wants. Aaron and Tim are not our rivals. Using our respective areas of expertise, we are running for office in Minnesota because of what we can contribute to the state's citizens. Nolan went on to say, "Our goal is to put an end to the partisan divides and division and gridlock, and to offer Minnesota a problem-solver's administration." Despite the failure of that run, Nolan continued to be involved in Minnesota politics and the environment. Just weeks before he passed away, Nolan was still speaking for legislative candidates, according to U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar. Klobuchar noted that Nolan was also a passionate outdoor enthusiast who, just this past weekend, used his ATV to clear pathways in the woods. According to his widow, Mary Nolan, Rick passed away in their Nisswa, Minnesota, home due to heart problems, according to the Associated Press. Politicians from Minnesota expressed their condolences and commended Nolan for his dedication to the people of northern Minnesota. At a press conference on Friday afternoon, U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar described him as a one-of-a-kind leader and a champion for the Northland. According to Senator Klobuchar, who spoke with Nolan's wife during the press conference, Nolan's death was very sudden and it happened in his sleep. Additionally, the senator issued a statement that stated, in part, he was the comeback kid. When he was sworn in again at age 69, he was one of the oldest freshmen in Congress, having previously been among the youngest. He was a true outdoor enthusiast, a hard worker, and he never lost sight of his roots. Mary and his family are in John's and my prayers and thoughts. I offer my sincere condolences to the family of my dear friend and former colleague Rick Nolan, stated U.S. Representative Betty McCollum. Throughout our state, Congressman Nolan stood up for working women and men, and championed northern Minnesota. One need only look to his hot dish competition, where he would offer venison he hunted, sap he harvested, and wild rice he gathered by hand, to see that he was a true Minnesotan and devoted public servant who loved the Northland. I'm thinking of his wife, Mary, and everyone who enjoyed getting to know him.